Should okay. Hello, students. Welcome to today's lecture. Now, we'll be considering the use of English and a very important topic. We're looking at the finite and non-finite verb. All right, class. So let's consider finite and non-finite verb. Okay. So we're going to be starting with the first aspect, which is the finite verb. What do we refer to as a finite verb? So from the English word finite, it simply means that this is a verb that is not static. Do you understand? This is a verb that can make changes. All right. A particular verb that is capable of making changes according to any form of grammatical change. For instance, if there's any alteration in the grammatical structure or in the structure of the sentence, there will definitely be a change in these verbs. Okay. Now, a finite verb basically it's a verb that will definitely change according to any form of grammatical change in the structure of the sentence. Do you understand? So that's what we refer to as finite verb. Now let's take a theoretical learning of it. Now here we have a finite verb is a verb which changes according to any form of grammatical change, according to any form of grammatical change in the structure of the sentence. In the structure of the sentence. Okay, now let's try to explain this in detail, better. Now, a finite verb is a verb which changes according to any form of grammatical change in the structure of the sentence. Now, pay attention to that. It means that the focus of the finite verb is basically on three most important things. All right. The first aspect is there will be a change in person. And I'm going to go in detail to what we refer to as person in English. Okay. This has to do with the aspects of first person, the second person, and the third person. Now, finite verb is also mostly concerned about number. Remember, the number in English refers to whether the word is singular or whether it is plural. And then the third aspect is a finite verb would also focus on tenses. Now, of course, you know that tenses would be classified under the present, all right, the past, and the future. Now, let's take the context of this. Here, we have that the focus of the finite verb, the focus of the finite verb is basically on the aspects of the person in quotes, place a comma, the number, and the tense. Now let's look at these three concepts closely. Now we have the person. Now, there are three categories. Of persons in English. There are three categories of persons in English. These are first person. Okay? First person. Another name for the first person is called the speaker. Now the next one is the second person. The second person. Another name for the second person is the receiver. or you can otherwise say the listener. All right. Now, the last aspect is the third person. The third person. Okay. The third person, which is known as the referent. Okay. That is, remember that the third person can either be a thing as well too. That's to which we make reference to is the third person. Now, this is just the first aspect in the category of the finite verb. So when you talk about the first person, this is basically the speaker, the convener, the person talking at the moment. For instance, I am the first person because I'm the one speaking, I'm the one talking, and you are listening. All right. For the fact that you are listening, you will be categorized as the second person. Do you understand? You are the listener, you are the receiver of the message, you are the second person in a grammatical category. Now, the third person refers to either an individual or a thing to which we're making reference to. For instance, now the major case study for today's discussion is finite verb. So we can possibly refer finite verb as the word as the third person. Do you understand that now? So we can regard the finite verb as the third person. Why? This is basically what we're making reference to. That's what we classify it as the third person. I hope this is very, very clear. Okay? I hope this is very, very clear. So now, when you're talking about this category of people, you can use pronouns to represent them. Okay? Now, usually, the first person, which is usually the speaker, remember, as we agreed, the speaker would always have the pronoun I. Do you understand? Have the singular personal pronoun I. You could also have it in terms of the plural, we. Can you see? So in this case, you have more than one speaker. So you have we in this category. So this is basically a pronoun representing the first person. So you can use I, you can as well use we to represent it. So remember, like I said, the first person is the speaker, the person talking at the moment, the convener, the originator of the message, the person who brings about the message of discourse. That's the first person. Okay? Now, the second person, like we agreed, the second person is basically the receiver. Okay? It's basically the receiver of the message. And we can use pronouns such as YOU to represent it. So at every case, for you to refer to the listener or the receiver of the message, you would make reference to the pronoun you. I hope this is clear to you. The third person, the third person, the third person would always make use of the third person, like you said, is the referent. Okay. Now here, the referent here I mean is this is either a person or a thing or an object to which we're making reference to. Do you understand? So that's the third person. So in this case, if we're to make reference of an individual, we can use he or she. If we're making use of probably non-living thing, it, and so on like that. Okay? Yeah, so please try to understand persons in terms of finite verbs. So in finite verbs, anytime you make changes in your person, that change would also reflect in the verb as well. Whenever you make any form of change in the person, for example, you're switching it from first person I to second person you, there will be a form of grammatical change in the verb. And whenever there's a change in the verb, it means that what? There is an element of finite verb being in play. And when you change from second person to the third person, that is, if you change from you to either he or she or it, what happens is that what? There has been a grammatical change entirely. All right. Now, we're going to take an example. We're going to take an example. So you can have, let's look at the aspect of number. Okay, the aspect of number. So number number represents either a singular or a plural form. So number represents either a singular or a plural form of a noun. That is, you're trying to say whether the noun is singular or it's plural. Okay? And remember, for most nouns, in order to show the singular form, you do not need letter S. And in order to show the plural form, you need to indicate the plural marker, which is letter S. In some cases, it could be ES. In some other cases, it could be IES. Do you understand? Depending on the structure of the word. So now, let's try to consider the aspects of tenses, okay? So here we have the tense is a form of a verb, which indicates the time of an action. Now let me explain this. When you're talking about the tense in English language, all you're trying to say is at what time did a particular action occur? Do you understand? At what time did a particular action happen? Okay, so you're trying to evaluate the time to which it occurred. Now, when you're trying to do that, the verb form must show. If it's an action that happened in the present, the verb must indicate the present tense. If it is a verb that is an action that happened in the past, the verb must indicate the past action. Now, if it's an action that happened or that will take place in the future, all right, the verb must indicate that. So now it is from this category that we have different subdivision of tenses. Now let's see. Every action must have a time reference. Do you understand that? So every action must have a time reference. Okay, comma. And each time reference is represented, by the appropriate verb. I hope you understood that, class. I said every action, whether present or past or future, all right, must have a time reference. Do you understand? Now, if you want to gauge the present action, what you can possibly use is now. If you want to gauge a past action, what you can possibly use is when. Okay? At the same time, if you want to gauge a futuristic action, you could also use when too. All right? When would you visit? When did the event happen? When can also function for both past and future. But when you're making reference to at the moment, you can use now. I hope this is clear to you, class. So now, and I said that, and each reference is represented by the appropriate verb. For example, it's an action that is happening at the moment. There are specific verbs that you're supposed to use. Do you understand? For example, you can use is or am. Do you understand? It indicates present. Now, if it's a past action or event, you could use was or had. If it's future, you could use will or shall. I hope these are quite understood. Now, tenses is just basically divided into three. And from these three, we now have subdivisions too. Okay, we now have subdivisions. So now, in this case, we have the present tense, okay, which will now be divided into the aspects of simple present, okay. You now have present continuous. Can you see that? Now present continuous tense. All right, so you have present continuous tense, you have present perfect tense. All right, and then you also have a subcategory which is the present perfect continuous tense. All right, so these are four categories under the present tense form of present tense. Okay, this is PT. Now after that we have the past. So in the past here, the past tense, you would also have the same thing, the simple past, or you can say the simple past, or you can say the past tense. Okay, and then this leads to the past continuous tense, the past continuous tense. Then you have the past perfect tense. Okay, then you now have the past perfect continuous tense. Is that okay, class? Now, next one you have the future tense. All right. So there are also four categories under the future tense. So you have the simple future. Okay. Now you have the future continuous. Okay. All right. So you have the future perfect, and then the last aspect you have the future perfect continuous tense. All right. Now, please pay attention to this. These are the different subcategories that the tense aspects would contain. Remember, I've explained how you'll be able to generate both the what, the person, the number, and the tense. Do you understand? The person, the number, and the tense. So now this is basically what finite verb is talking about. Any moment you make changes in the person, all right, or in the tense, or in the number, you definitely affect the verb. Okay, now let's take an example. So our example can stem from either a regular verb or an irregular verb, but irregular verb will make more meaning. Okay, I hope you still remember what an irregular verb is. I hope you still remember what an irregular verb is. But in case you don't, I would still explain to you better. So an irregular verb is a verb that do not end in ed for both past tense and past participle. Do you understand? It means that an irregular verb does not have a fixed form. Do you understand? It changes according to the differences in the tense. So if it moves from present tense to past tense, what happens? the irregular verb will change. And if it moves again from past tense to past participle, what happens? The verb would also change. That's irregular verb for you. It does not have a fixed form of ed ending for both past tense and past participle. I hope this is very clear to you. Now let's look at another aspect. Now, so now we can consider an irregular verb whereby we have go. Of course, here you would have past tense went. Okay, then you have singular present form goes, and you have gone for past participle. Okay, you have go, went, you have goes, and you have gone. So this is the base form. Remember, this is the base form. This is the past tense. I'll give you an example of an irregular verb. This is irregular. Okay, this is the singular present form. This is the singular present form. Remember. Okay, and this is the past participle. Okay, so now if there are changes, why am I introducing this? If there are changes in either the number, the tense, or the person, there will be a change in the verb form. Okay, now we can look at it from the angle of a person. Let's look at it from the angle of persons now. Okay, so here I go to school. I go to school always. Do you see that now? I go to school always. This is talking about, okay, the first person. What happens to be careful of the verb as well too, okay? Now, you you went to school. You went to school. Yesterday. You went to school yesterday. Okay. It could be a reconfirmation. It could also be a question form. Remember, any way it can go. Okay. They. You could use they. You could use they, or you could use she. She goes to school. She goes to school only twice a week. What have I been able to do, class? I'm making reference to person here. I is the first person, okay? You is the second person. So either he or she is the third person. I go to school always, okay? You went to school yesterday. You can, like I said, it can be a statement, it can equally be a question, all right? Depending on which particular construction you want. Then she goes to school only twice a week, probably Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday, depending. All right. So this is first person, this is second person, and this is third person. Okay. You can devise another verb to illustrate that. You can use another verb entirely to illustrate it. So what happens? Remember, as I'm making changes in the number, what happens? Can you see? If I change the person from first person to second person, it will equally affect the verb. Do you understand? It will definitely affect the verb. As I'm changing it from first person to second person, this time around, I is what? The first person. Then you is talking about the second person, and then she is making reference to the third person. Okay? I hope this is clear to you. Now, let's look at it in terms of number. Okay, in terms of number. So here I have number. Okay, so I'm going to be going slightly back.